בביאת המשיח, בביאת המשיח אני מאמין, ואף על פי שיתממע עם כל זה אני
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום. Good evening. I'm Debbie Tartell, the conductor of the Shirenu Choir of Long Island. Soloists for Hashkivenu were Lori Freudman and Jackie Wallach. At this time, I would like to introduce Jerry Kushner, one of the directors of the Music Institute of Long Island here in Manhasset. Jerry describes this violin as passion and love, and it is a cherished family heirloom. The Kushner family's 2 violins and viola were once played in the ghettos and hideouts in concentration camps. And currently, they are played by Jerry, her sister Carol, and Jerry's daughter, Michelle. The violin you will hear tonight belonged to Jerry's mother, who almost lost her life when the Nazis confiscated it on Kristallnacht. Her grandmother begged the Nazi to allow Jerry's mother to keep the violin. It was restored by David Herman, who also lost family members in the Holocaust. David restored this and other violins rescued in the Holocaust, free of charge in what he called Project Revival. It was done with the intent of giving a voice to the millions who were silenced. Thank you, Jerry, for donating your time tonight and allowing your violin to tell the story of Jewish survival. Vocal soloist on Rajinkis mit Mandlin is Marissa Katz.
want to stand moving up?
Yes, if you can move and stand, that'd be great.
The stage.
What?
You look at
The little stage, yes.
Yeah.
We don't need it.
Friends, as we have done here in Temple Israel for many years, we have come together this evening, less than 2 weeks after Pesach, to remember. And we have found many ways of expressing our desire to remember. And one of them is to recognize those members of our congregation who are survivors of the Shoah. Before I go any further, I would like to share with you a reflection written by a late lamented colleague and friend whose name indeed is known to some of you, Rabbi Reuven Hammer. And he writes, "The ark of Torah, of faith, of learning, stands empty and bereft. We have come here to remember those who cannot be forgotten. We have come to speak of that which cannot be spoken, but must not be left unsaid. We have come to remind not others but ourselves of what was done and what was not done. We have come to ask questions that cannot be answered, but cannot be left unasked. We know how to remember the dead we have known. We know how to commemorate the death of one person, but all of us are mourners. All of us recall not one, but 6 million ones. Not alone those we have known, but those who no one can know, the names that are forever lost. In that spirit, I would like to share with you names of some Shoah survivors who were members of this congregation, who regretfully are no longer among the living. And so we recall Andre Shainman, Malka Chaya and Sarah Albert, Alter Yenta and David Dresner, Rose Rothbaum, Dr. Kurt A. Zelenziger, Lily Serafina Zelenziger, Joseph Schwalbendorf, Rochelle Greenberg, Bendler family, Bloom family, Sirkovitz family, Alftel family, Ludwig Oppenheimer, Henry Henrik Dressler, Miriam Mirka Dressler, and we still have among us several survivors who are just now walking in, accompanied by children of our schools, second generation, in some cases perhaps third generation. They will help us to remember. They must, because after this generation, who is left? And so we welcome to our synagogue, to our assemblage, Goldie Weisner, Edith Weinberger and son, Fanny Naratsky and son. And along with them, we shall remember. But more important, we shall think of how we can perpetuate that memory, even after we of this generation, they of the Shoah generation, are no longer here. And in that spirit, we begin our service for Yom HaShoah.
Tonight, we gather at dusk as a community to begin our commemoration of Yom HaShoah. This day, the full name of which in Hebrew is Yom HaShoah v'Hagvura, the day of Holocaust remembrance and Gvura, heroism. Tonight, as we wind down the month of Nisan and find our way through the second week in our journey of Omer counting, we reflect upon the divine and human attribute of Gevura, heroism, might, discipline, strength. This year, 5782, as we make space for national and communal remembrance of the horrors of the Shoah, as we affirm never again, we cannot help but hold in our hearts as well the present, moment by moment, heroism and suffering of the people of Ukraine. Holy One of blessing, we pray that our commemoration of the Holocaust this and every year will imbue us and this world with gevura, courage, to overcome all forces of hate and inhumanity. On this sacred evening of Yom HaShoah v'Hagvura, we affirm the power of community enriched by unity and by difference. Tonight, we affirm the power of the abiding flame of memory, the strength that comes from telling and sharing our story. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, dear God of our mothers and fathers, of all who have traveled life's path before us, we pray that our reflections this evening will honor, sanctify, and uplift the souls and memories of all who perished in the Shoah. And we pray that each of us, day by day, will make those memories a blessing by the gevura, the courage by which we live our lives.
I would like to dedicate this piece to Anita Lasker Wallfish. At the age of 18, Anita was deported to Auschwitz. After mentioning that she could play the cello, Anita was inducted into the orchestra of prisoners led by Alma Rose, Gustav Mahler's niece. The cello saved my life, she later said. The orchestra played marches as enslaved laborers left the camp in step for work every morning and when they returned in the evening. On Sundays, the girls performed for the SS. Now 95, Anita is the most prominent survivor raising her voice against hate. Racism hasn't died out, unfortunately, but as members of the human race, we are responsible for one another. One recurring theme in her lectures is an extortion. Talk to each other before you kill each other. Go drink a cup of coffee together. Celebrate your differences.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our annual event that commemorates and marks the Shoah, that remembers the countless lives lost during years which saw some of history's greatest crimes ever perpetrated by man against man. And to celebrate and bless those who have shared their experiences over the years with us. Over time, we have heard oft painful, but always thoughtful and engaging stories from our survivors. Their intimate experience is so important for us to hear and to digest. We're now 80+ years removed from this horrific time in our history. And as the years go on, the numbers of survivors diminish, and the generations become further removed as the timeline since this tragic period extends. It becomes ever more important to mark the event, to share the history, the remembrances, and the power of people's instincts to survive, so that we do, in fact, never forget. Tonight's story will be shared by Holocaust survivor Stephen Israela, who will tell his firsthand story of survival. David Albert, a co-chair of the Shoah Committee, will share details of Mr. Israela's life a bit later. We've been joined, and thank the Shirenu Choir of Long Island, who've added their musical voices to the service, and Sharon Kahn Bernstein, who has added her musicality as well. We recall the names of loved ones lost. A few thanks to mention, first to David Albert and to Rob Panzer, the co-chairs, to the members of the Shoah Committee for all of their efforts in putting together tonight's program, to the clergy and all who participate tonight to ensure the memories continue to be heard and are, as we say, never forgotten.
Good evening. I have the distinct honor and privilege to be able to serve as a witness to these incredible learners behind me. They've spent the past 6 months wrestling with what it meant for somebody to experience the atrocity of the Shoah. In their own very specific way, our 7th grade recognizes that the burden we adults put on our young learners is not one to be taken lightly. They've each prepared a recognition for their own self, what it would have been like should they have been in that moment. We focused on the poem by Pastor Niemöller about First They Came For. As most people know, it has a universalistic tone that says, if I'm not supporting the next person, they will not be there to support myself. However, what our 7th graders pointed out is every single stanza uses the word I, right? That it's the individual's responsibility to see themselves in that chain, not just the global. And so each one of our 7th graders is prepared to take on somebody who unfortunately lost their story too early and who forever shall remain in our collective story and memory.
This Yom HaShoah, I am remembering Edward Horman. He was born in Holland. His parents were Elizabeth and Philip. He died at the age of 12. He is remembered by Vortes Andre from Israel.
This Yom HaShoah, I'm remembering the life of Moshe Camber. He was born in 1933 in Kaunas, Lithuania. He died in a ghetto in Germany at the age of 11. His parents were Esther and Abraham Camber. He is remembered today by Baruch Camber.
This Yom HaShoah, I'm remembering Tommy Lederer. His parents' names were Bozina and Pavel. He's remembered by Asher Goodler.
For my Yom HaShoah, I am remembering Eric Aharon Goldberg. He was born in Lodz, Poland, and died of gas chambers in 1945.
This Yom HaShoah, I am remembering Peter Harzat. He was born in Poland. His parents were named Paul and Erzi. Peter died at the age of 11, and he is remembered by Gabriel and Harari. This Yom HaShoah, I'm remembering Esther Neuwirth. She was born in Hungary in 1933. She is the daughter of Sandor Neuwirth and Hermina Goldstein. She was 12 years old when she died in Auschwitz in 1945. She is remembered by Amon Pazi in Jerusalem.
This Yom HaShoah, I'm remembering Leah Pearl. She was born in Romania in 1933 and the daughter of Jacob Pearl and Rebecca Pearl. She passed away at the age of 12 in Auschwitz in 1945 and is remembered by her brother Anshel Pearl.
This Yom HaShoah is Moshe Jablanowitz. He was born in Russia and his parents are Leib and Fela. He died in Auschwitz at 12 years old and he died at 1942. He's remembered by Mordechai Jablanowitz.
This Yom HaShoah, I am remembering Eva Katrina Gutman. She was from Yugoslavia. Her parents were Lydia Gutterman and Paul Gutterman, and she died at the age of 12 in Budapest by the river Durape. She is remembered by Laszlo Gutterman.
This Yom HaShoah, I'm remembering Haya Herskovitz. She was born in Tornal, which is modern-day Slovakia. Her parents were Leah and Yehuda Herskovitz. She died at age 12 in Auschwitz in 1945. She was remembered by her sister Esther.
May their names and memories be always inscribed in our hearts and our lives.
We invite the entire community to join together in Eli, Eli. And once we get to the English lyric in the second verse, we'll sing together, "O God, my God." And at the end of the song, we'll sing the prayer of the soul, the prayer of the soul. God, my God.
O God, my God, I pray that these things never end.
The sand and the sea.
The sand and the sea.
The rush of the waters.
The rush of the waters.
The crash.
The crash of the waves.
The prayer of the soul.
The prayer of the soul. The sand and the sea. The rush of the waters.
Wohin soll ich gehen? So many people asked, where can I go? Where can we go? There's no place I can see. Every door is closed to me. Wohin soll ich gehen? Wer kann entfernen mir? Wohin soll ich gehen? Als verschlossen jede Tür. Es ist die Welt groß genug, nur vor mir ist eng und klein. Wir Brück kommt zurück, sie zerstört jede Brück. Wohin soll ich gehen? Tell me, where can I go? There's no place I can see. Where to go, where to go? Every door is closed to me. To the left, to the right. It's the same in every land. There is nowhere to go. Won't you please understand? Won't you please understand? Now I know where to go, where my folks proudly stand. Where to go, where to go, to the precious promised land. No more left, no more right. Lift your head, for there is light. I am proud, can't you see? For at last I am free. No more wandering for me. Moshe Almakias from our loving state of Israel.
Thank you. I just want to make sure you can hear us okay. Okay. I want to acknowledge Manny Bardash. Manny was our past president of our synagogue, but he's also the founder of the Shoah Remembrance Committee, and he was an absolute mensch. His father and mother were from Eastern Europe. Manny was not only active in our synagogue, but he was a fabulous engineer and an inventor. He inspired many of us, and he will be missed. I met Stephen Israeler last year. My family was put in touch with Steve because a German doctor who was doing research on atrocities committed by German physicians in concentration camps found documents that my late father and Mr. Israeler were in the infirmary at the Flossenburg concentration camp in Germany. When we spoke to him, we realized that not only was he in the same concentration camp in Germany with my father, Oscar, but it was on almost the same terrible journey through slave labor and concentration camps as my father as well. Steve's recounting of his experiences is important so that we never forget. For me, I heard stories that were personal, My dad chose not to speak about his experiences. Through Steve, I have learned much about what they went through. Thank you, Steve. And on behalf of the Shoah Remembrance Committee, we honor you today and thank you for presenting your story for us to hear, record, and remember.
Good evening, distinguished rabbis, distinguished president, distinguished guests, and members of the synagogue. I normally don't speak of the things that happened to us. I met Dr. Albert by chance. He found me rather than I found them. And knowing that his father went with me through the Holocaust, through 3 camps, I have never met the man, but I feel that his children are my family. For what we suffered together brought us together as a family. My name is Steve. In Poland was Zachar Israeler, born on January 19th, 1931, in a city by the name of Krakow, Poland. I think, in my opinion, the prettiest city there is in Poland and maybe in Europe. I spent the first 8.5 years of my life a very, very well taken care of little boy. My parents were what we would call today upper middle class. We had a cook and cleaning ladies, and I had a nanny, Polish lady that was with us till the war, where we had to separate. This was my second mother. On September 7th, 1939, I was 8 years and 9 months old. The Germans invaded and were in Krakow. They started the war the 1st of September on a Friday. They came in, they marched into Krakow, 7th of September, 1939. And that's what the story began. Within a few weeks of their coming into the city, we came to our apartment, my parents' apartment, and they took every possession that was of value, of semi-value, silver, gold, anything that was shining was taken by them. Within a couple of weeks, trucks came in my father's stores and cleaned them out from A to Z, loaded the trucks and shipped them on to Germany. My father was a businessman in textiles. Textiles sold for suits, for men and ladies' dresses and suits. Business seemed to have been good because we had a good life. By October of 1939, my father heard that the city supposed to be cleaned of Jews, and since it became the seat of the Governor General of Poland, the German Nazi governor that became the king of Poland. My father, not wanting to beg or ask for protection of some sort, decided we leave to Tarnów, which is about 50 kilometers from Krakow, with our possessions that we could take along so that we will have no problems. He didn't know the problems just begun. When we came into Tarnów, a sister of my mother's who lived there, married to a man, found us a beautiful apartment in a beautiful section of Tarnów. And the first few months, we had a very good life. The commander of the regiment that was stationed in Tarnów lived in the same building, 1 floor below us. So we had no harm done to us. I found a job as a little boy in a Gestapo garage right across the street And I worked there on the engine. I learned from the mechanics what, how, and how to change a tire, how to repair small things in the car, and we were left in peace. Within a few months, the German civilians that came into Tarnow, Poland, wanted the apartment because it was very, very nice, very clean, modern building, or relatively speaking, modern building. They wanted to get a hold of it. We at first tried to stay there as long as we could, but there came a point with a few months where we had to vacate it and move into a series of buildings that used to belong to the railway workers of Polish Railroad. Of course, they were all evacuated and only Jews lived there. We lived there in 2 rooms, kitchen. We were 11 people in it. Somehow or other we managed to live. We were 8, 6 of children, my parents, a cousin of my father, and my father's sister, her husband, and her 2 children. We all lived, we all somehow or other managed to sleep, bathe in one bathroom, and use the kitchen at the same time. Everything went well. Till June of 25th, 1942, where the German occupation forces brought in what we called an action against the Jews. They went from house to house, brought those people that did not have a certain stamp in their pass outside and executed them. My parents and 2 sisters were the unfortunate ones that didn't have the right documents. They were taken out and shot. My father was badly wounded, and when the Germans finished the action, he came to the house. Bullet was shot through his head, came out of his mouth. Everything was torn out. The only way he could communicate with us is through writing. And one of the notes he sent to my sister was, never forget what they did to us. Unfortunately, no doctor was to be had, no nurse to be had. Those that were in the field of medicine did not want to show their faces. Of course, my father was so badly wounded that he died the very next day. And we were left, 2 youngest sisters, my brother and myself were left. Unfortunately, this action was not this only one. We were moved to a ghetto. Immediately after we were into the ghetto, they started the second action, where they took people that did not have papers or did not have work and were sent out, what we understood, to work camp, but they were sent out to Sobibor or Majdanek or some such place where they were killed by gas, or on the way there, tortured and killed. By the end of 1942, there were only a few hundred Jews left. I was among them, and due to a misfortune of a driver for the ghetto commander, who was an assessment, an Oberscharführer, which is equivalent to a sergeant, but high rank for the SS. He was the chief of the ghetto. He lost his driver. He tried to escape, but fortunately got caught and shot. He asked for a driver, and I raised my hand. He asked me, I was 11 years old. He asked me, how come I know about horses? I said, not only do I know, but my father was a horseman too. Fortunately for me, I knew something about horses because I loved them. And I became his driver, his family driver, drove a horse and buggy. Instead of car, he used the horse and buggy because cars were not available to them. Like this, I survived till the end of the ghetto. And we would ship the horses via train, us on trucks, to a camp right outside of Krakow called Płaszów. I came there and it was terrible. First of all, lice were as big as human. They ate us. Food was not edible. But I had some family members. Within a week or two, I got sort of acclimatized in that camp. But I saw there were too many kids, too many children. For children brought the Nazis and they brought action again, either to take the children out of the camps and to kill them or to send them to extermination camp. Not that I was so wise, but I was scared for my life. And I volunteered to go to a Arbeitslager, a work camp. Didn't know the name, but within 2 days, we were held in a separate camp. And we were sent to a camp called Mielec. The town was Mielec. This was an old Polish plane factory in the town that the Poles never used but constructed. And the Germans used it to build their own fighter planes and bombers. We came from Płaszów. A group of Dr. Albert's father came from another camp. And we were about 3,000 Jews in the camp in Mielec, building the German planes called Heinkel 111K. These were supposedly night bombers, night fighters, night bombers. I was a little guy, so at first they put me to work in the gasoline or fuel tanks where I could go and do the work that they needed to be done. Later on, because of my size, they took me on the planes that were finished. And we flew those planes as we didn't. I was there as a little prisoner, and the German pilots from the German Luftwaffe were flying those planes to test them that they were ready to be taken over by the German Air Force. Within about 9 months of our labor in camp and my work in camp, the Russians advanced towards the camp. They were coming from the east to west. And the Germans, being scared of us being captured with the planes, decided to disconnect the construction work on the planes, take the equipment by train and us in another train to a town called Wieliczka, which is right outside of Krakow. And they wanted, this was a salt mining town, and they wanted to build the plane factory in the mine. So they couldn't be bombed from above, and we could construct the planes. However, the Russians were a little fast. The Germans couldn't finish to put up the workshops in the mine, and they put us back on the train, evacuated us. About 4 days by train. We asked a Polish railway worker where we were going. He told us not to worry, we're going to death. Apparently the train had symbols Auschwitz. They brought us to the train station or the railroad yard in Auschwitz. But the Jews at that time, the Jews that worked in the crematoria and gas chambers decided since they were going to die, they will kill the crematoria, the gas chambers, and some Germans with them. They blew the stuff up. They couldn't offload us in Auschwitz. They kept us on the train for another few days, and they sent us on to a place unknown. After about 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, we were brought to a camp in Bavaria in the Alps called Flossenburg. They offloaded us in that little train station with dogs, SS all over, yelling, screaming. And we marched a few miles to camp. And we apparently were the first Jewish prisoners in that camp. The camp was mostly for Germans, German criminals, and German political prisoners, as well as some Czechs, French, Poles, and others. And the camp at first was decently good. They put us in a sub-camp within the camp, and they kept those that came, the Jews, naked as we were, our clothing taken off, kept in barracks at night and days outside. It was already fall, cold. It was terrible. Lucky I was a youngster. It didn't do me so much harms as the others. But within 2 weeks, they gave us the striped suits, and they sent us to register. And I tried to tell the German that was registering me that I'm 18 because I didn't want to be 12 or 11, whatever I was, I think, 12. I was always scared to be younger. And he told me, you are not 18, you are a youngster of 12. You will go to the Jugendblock, the youngster block. I didn't believe it. I thought it was the end of my life. However, this camp had a Jugendblock, youth block, and we really there got more food and more soups than the others because we were under 18. We did the same work as the others. We were sent to work making parts for a German jet. It was called Messerschmitt. We didn't know what we were building. We were building wings. I mean, we knew that we were building wings, but we didn't see the plane. The finished plane was put together someplace else. We just built parts for it. We worked there 7 days a week, Sunday afternoons off. So the afternoons off was carrying rocks from one side of the camp to another, just so we will be busy. If this was finished, they had probably the best symphony orchestra in the world. It was made up of prisoners, both Jews and non. Every Sunday afternoon, they had to give us a concert. The concert was beautiful, but I didn't understand and I wanted to rest. And so were most of the people, but we had to listen to the concert. These were our days in camp. We worked till April 1945, April 16th, 1945, we were called to, as Dr. Albert probably has seen, the so-called Appellplatz, the appeal place, was a big square in the camp, surrounded by blocks of prisoners, and we had to stay outdoors to be counted, and each camp in a separate section. They told us then that all Jews to step out. Of course, I didn't want to. but a Polish kid that knew me said, "Hey, you Jew, go with your people." Of course, I couldn't hide anymore. So I went with a group of the Jews where we were separate, put in separate formation. But within a couple of hours, marched out of the camp. We all thought we were going to death. They put us on a train. There was flat cars, not box cars, but flat cars, with German guards on each end of the cars. And some of them had anti-tank, anti-aircraft machine guns. And we started moving out. Within a few hours, the American planes came down, machine gunned the railway locomotives at both ends, and some of us taken along with the railroad locomotives. And some of us were wounded. I got a little wound, but I bandaged it up. It wasn't too bad. And I survived the first attack by Americans. Of course, they didn't know we were prisoners. To them, we were two locomotives with, as far as they knew, military. They shut us up. They brought two new locomotives. We went a few kilometers, same thing. Within 3 days, the Germans lost 6 locomotives, a number of their guards, and some of our prisoners. Finally, they decided in a town called Schwarzenfeld, but they probably couldn't get any more locomotives. They lined us up, and we were marched to Dachau. We didn't believe it was Dachau. We believed that they will take us into the forest and kill us off. But it wasn't the case. They marched us a few kilometers, but again, the planes showed up, and again, they tore into us. So they decided that we will sleep in days in the forest, and we will march at night. And so it was about the 18th, 19th of April, we were marched off by foot from the right side of Schwarzenfeld into going, I think, west. And supposedly we were coming to Dachau. Finally, on April the 22nd, they put my section in a barn. Some of us thought that they would light up and burn the barn with us inside. It wasn't the case. They woke us up. We lined up again. They took us into a forest. Within 15 minutes in the forest, we saw the German guards beginning to throw off their ammunition belts, throwing their guns away and disappearing. Within a couple of hours, I took my friends, 5 of us, they were youngsters, a little older than I, who I was friends with in camp. And I said, we can't stay here. They will come back and kill us. Let's go to town. Let's see what's happening. We will either die in town or die in the woods. Makes no difference. As we marched off to the little town, we saw a German major standing with a Panzerfaust, which was an anti-tank weapon, and looking through his binoculars into town. I spoke a little German because of my parents being schooled in German language when they were kids. They were on the Austrian, and in Austrian part of Poland. I asked him if he will give us permission to go into town. And the other kids made believe they had guns from behind. He raised his hands, dropped his anti-tank weapon. We marched him into town because if not, he was our defense. If they killed him, they killed us. If they killed us, they killed him. By the time we came into town, we saw the American army. We didn't know it was the American army. We thought it was the Russian army because we saw the white stars on tanks, jeeps, anything that moved to the white star, trucks. And I started yelling in Russian and Polish, and they started throwing food to us. I asked my friends not to eat it because I thought this was something bad. And all of a sudden a jeep pulled in and a soldier comes out and he asked us where we are from. And we said, we are Jews from Poland. We were in camp. We just came into town and there are a lot of them in the prisoners in the woods. They'll find them. It was the 90th Division of the Third Army. We were freed on April the 23rd at about 10 a.m. We were free again. The freedom that we know is hard to describe. We didn't know we will ever see it, but all of a sudden, those that had the privilege of survived. I was taken to a field hospital where I was laid up with a lieutenant who both healed at the same time. He took me along to his company where I stayed with the American Army for about 6 or 7 months till the troops of the 90th Divisions were shipped home. They have enough points in combat to earn their return to the States. They wanted to take me along. I did not want to go illegally to America. They found a home for me that was being founded by the UNRWA. That was the UN part, and there was a cloister in near Dachau there. They shipped us over, some youngsters and I, to be in an orphanage for people that lost their folks, their families. And we stayed there till I found out that I found my family. It was somewhere, other part in Germany. I finally met up with them and I went with them to Paris. It was a big mistake because from Germany, I could have been in the States in 46 or 47. Like this, I had to go to Canada and then come to the States in 49. This is the story in essence of my camps, and I did not want to go into details. You have children, I don't want to bring. The suffering that we went through is indescribable, but this is for another day, another place. Now we are free. I live in New York. I've lived in New York with my partners since, well, I lived in New York since 49. I met my partner about 36 years ago, and we lived together here on West End Avenue and in Manhattan, where Dr. Albert was good enough to put up the Zoom that I could see you and you could see me. And this is essentially the story of my life. I am now an old 91-year-old man suffering old age pains and pangs, but living a life as good as possible or as well as possible. If I don't speak as well as I can, it's A, because I do suffer pain, physical pain, and B, because I am not a teller of my life. It's very difficult. It was very difficult no matter what I said, but due to the honor of Dr. Albert and his sister Helen, I wouldn't have done it for anyone or any place. I've done it once, and this is the second time, hopefully never again. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. And may you and the young people remember that 6 million people were killed for no other reason except that they were Jews. Whether they were observant or not observant, whether semi-Jews or half-Jews or a quarter Jews, they were rotted out to the last that they could. Remember and keep that memory alive, for we have no much time left, and we'll be all gone, and you'll have to live on our history. So please remember the day, remember the time where we were killed off. Murdered like nothing. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Israeler. Thank you. And again, thank you to David Alpert for making the trip across the river to make the power of Zoom. And really, he stole my show because I was going to speak to the children that are here and say, God willing, if you are able to live to the age of 91, if you are 10 years old, then in the year 2100, God willing, you will be able to say that you met and saw Stephen speak and heard his story. And you can tell that to the children that are 10 years old in the year 2100. And as President Eisenhower, actually it was General Eisenhower at the time, when the American army liberated the camps, he knew that there were going to be people who were going to question, how could this atrocity happen? And he encouraged journalists and other photographers to go and take pictures and obviously encourage people to tell the story so that we don't forget and obviously never again. And so we have an obligation, as our seventh graders taught us, each and every person to make sure never again. And in that idea of speaking to the children, we're going to do the evening service, which includes the Shema, where we're told, V'shinantam levanecha. We shall teach to our children not just the pains of our history, but the glory of our history, being freed from Egypt, and one day we will all be redeemed. I invite you to find a siddur underneath the seat in front of you. If you're in the front row, I tried to bring some books out, and we rise as you are able, page 281. 281.
והרבה להשיבה בו ולא יאיר חוכמתו אדוני הושיע המלך יעננו ויום קורנו ברכו את אדוני מבורך
ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד
ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד
You may be seated. ביום ולילה
אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב הרבי אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ויורך ימינו ובהם נגד יומם הלילה ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל.
Amen. 282.
שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני
ואהבת
את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברתם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאורות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, והיה
ישמרו לכם.
ויאמר המלאך שדיבר מה תזכרו
אדוני אליכם
God redeems us from the power of kings, delivers us from the hands of tyrants, performing wonders beyond understanding and marvels beyond all reckoning.
מלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף מלכותך לא בניך וקיים לפני משה, זה לי ענו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם
ונאמר כי ברא את יעקב וגואלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גל ישראל.
Remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, O God, who watches over us and delivers us, our gracious and merciful ruler.
ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני שומר עמו ישראל לעד.
As you are able, please rise 285.
יתקרב יתרשם מרבה ברמת יברכרותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ובמכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בגלל בזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמי יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרום ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי לקדושה בריחו לעילה מכל בחטא ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן גלמה ויאמרו
Take a few moments for private prayer using the words on the pages 286 to 291 as well as the meditations of our heart.
Grant true and lasting peace to your people Israel and all who dwell on earth. All who dwell on earth. Bless us with the gift of peace. We continue with Shalom Rav, page 291.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha, Tasim Tasim Leolam.
You may be seated.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha, Tasim Tasim Leolam. Ki ata melech Adon lechol hashalom, ki ata melech, Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, Tasim Tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, Tasim Tasim leolam. Ve'tov 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 Beinecha Levarech et amcha Yisrael Bechol eit u'bechol sha'a Bishlomecha. Join with me. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, Tasim Tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, Tasim Tasim leolam. Shalom, Shalom.
294.
תתקרב את השמי רבה.
אמן.
גרמתי ברכרותי במפקותי, בחיי חון וחון, ובחיי רחוב את ישראל, הגלה ויזמן קריב ימרו.
אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה, יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר, ויתרום ויתנשא, ויתהדר, ויתעלה ויתעלה, שמי לקודשה בריחו. לילה מנחמך ושירתה, תשכתה ורחמתה דמירה, בעמה ואמרו.
אמן.
תתקבץ לא תרבתון דחו ישראל, הודם אבון וישמע ואמרו.
אמן.
יש למרה במין שמיה וחיים, הנרבקו ישראל ואמרו.
אמן.
עושה שלום
במרומה ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו
We rise on page 55 as we continue our count from Passover to Shavuot. Last night we counted 11. Page 55.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו בספירת העומר.
אמן.
היום 12 יום שם שבוע אחד ו5 ימים לעומר.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishatos b'tzivanu asrat omer hayom 12 yom shehem shavua echad v'chamisha yamim la'omer 12 days, 1 week, and 5 days. Page 51, Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל עמונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. שירותי שמיים וירותי ארץ וירותי שמיים ומשכונת עוזו על כן נכבד לך אלוהינו לראות מהר. הכתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה
those of your side and those who wish to recite Kaddish for the 6 million to join on page 52 for the mourners Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadosh shemei Rabba v'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei techol beit Yisrael v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam olamei almaya יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו ואליו מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן ביעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
May be seated. Yes, everybody please be seated. In a moment we're going to rise for the memorial prayer El Malei Rachamim, and I want to just share a brief reflection before we do. First of all, here we are, all ages together, with profound music and profound words and reflections. It is really a remarkably inspiring evening. And what I want to say explicitly is what is implicit, which is that we're here, that our people are here. We are here, we are remembering, we are singing, we are praying, and we're also transmitting midor ledor from one generation to another what it means to be a Jewish person in the world, which is to spread light and love and justice in the world. That's what we do. So I want to just reflect on a song that was written maybe 50 years ago. It was written by Bob Dylan, very famous songwriter and singer. And the song was called Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. And in that song, an older person is singing to a child. And he's asking the child, where have you been? And then he's asking the child, what have you heard? And then he's asking the child, what have you seen? And so the child describes where he's been. The child describes what he's seen, which has included things that are pleasant, but also things that are painful. Child describes what he's heard, which includes things that are pleasant and things that are painful. And then the final question that the singer asks his child is, what are you going to do now? And the child says, I'm going to learn my song well. That's what the child says. I'm going to learn my song well, and paraphrasing, I'm going to sing that song in a way that reflects everything that I have seen and everything that I have heard. So I want to say to all of us, whatever age we are, we have seen, we have heard. That is the purpose of our gathering. And what are we going to do now? And that may be different for each of us. It'll be filtered through our own gifts and our own predilections and our own natures. But I hope we will think about that question, what are we going to do now? And that can be what we do in the middle school cafeteria. That could be what we do in the workplace. That could be what we do to the extent that we want to raise up the political influence that we have. What are we going to do now? So I invite us to think about that and to articulate it and to act on it, because that is truly how we will take all of these stories and bring them to life as part of our work in the world. So I want to invite everyone, as you are able, to rise for the memorial prayer. We remember the beautiful and precious souls that are no longer on this important day of Yom HaShoah.
If you'd like to follow along with the prayer, it's on page 196. Page 196.
תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קרושים תורים כזוהר רקיע מזהירים לנשמות כל אחינו בני ישראל שנטבחו שנחנקו שנשרפו ושנהרגו שמסרו את נפשם הקידוש השם בגן עדן בגן עדן תהי מנוחתם. הנעם על הרחמים רחמים. הסירם בסתר כנפיך, בסתר כנפיך לעולמי. ותרור בתרור החיים, בתרור החיים את נשמותיהם. אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום, ושלום, ושלום משכבותיהם, ונאמר
Chazan Shamash is going to lead us in Shir HaPartizanim, a song that the partisans sang as part of their resistance, and Cantor Adam Davis from Temple Bethel. You may, if you wish, be seated.
We welcome you to join with us.
It's found on the second to last page of the program, so please join together.
As I was walking through the sanctuary, Jeffrey Fleet tapped me on the shoulder and said that my father was one of the partisans. His name was Saul Shaul. So we sing this with his strength, with the strength of Cantor Butensky, who taught me this song. He was another liberator. We can all have the strength to go forward, to also be gentle and offer a loving hand.
Sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst dem jetzt im Weg, Gott schwemme bleire, verstelle bloie Weg. Kommen wird noch unser ausgeweckte Schau, es wird aport und unser Trott mit seinen da. Kommen wird noch unser ausgeweckte Schau, es wird aport und unser Trott mit seinen da. From land of palm trees to the far-off land of snow, we shall be coming with our torment, with our woe. And everywhere the blood has sunk into the earth, shall our bravery, our vigor blossom forth. And everywhere our blood has sunk into the earth, shall our bravery, our vigor blossom forth. We'll have the morning sun to set our day aglow. Our evil yesterdays will vanish with the foe. But if the time is long before the sun appears, then let this song go like a signal through the years. But if the time is long before the sun appears, then let this song go like a signal through the years.
The song was written with our blood and not with lead. It's not a song that summer birds sing overhead. It was a people amidst burning barricades that sang this song of ours with pistols and grenades.
It was a song amidst burning barricades that sang the song of ours with pistols and grenades. So never say you can now go on your lost way. Through darkened skies may now conceal the blue of day, because the hour for which we've hungered is so near. Beneath our feet the earth shall thunder, we are here. Because the hour for which we've hungered is so near. Beneath our feet the earth shall thunder, we are here.
Zognet,
Sag nicht einmal, als du gehst den letzten Weg. Gott himmel bleien, verstellen neue Tag. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schau. Es wird abheucht und unser Trott mit seinen da. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schau. Es wird abheucht und unser Trott mit seinen da.
So we're going to conclude with hope, with Hatikva. And we're going to invite all the children who are here who would like to come forward. Please do come forward and sing Hatikva with us. We are looking toward a beautiful present and a beautiful future. And following the singing of Hatikva, which will conclude our service, everyone who wishes is invited as you leave to take a memorial candle, and the doors will be open, and you can leave them on our Shoah monument outside in front. Everybody, please rise for Hatikva. Thank you for joining us, everybody. May the memory and the legacy of those who perished in the Shoah inspire us always.
Okay, guys, tomorrow night at 7:30, I'll send Ellie to the Zoom link right there. What? It's all game yes. We're holding hands. It's good. Tomorrow we're having our program on Zoom. Join me 7:30. Yeah. It's because I'm giving you a night off not to come here. Okay, so everyone what? It's about TikTok, Twitch, and Snapchat. I'm serious. It's about TikTok, Twitch, and Snapchat. Okay, what do you like the other two?